Okay, so I have to ask the first thing. What does the name come from?
So it's a word that's not really used much in Spanish, and it's not like the English translation is not used either. It essentially means like a defensive parapet of a castle. There's like a defensive structure of a castle.
Okay.
Like I'd say a synonymous to a bastion. You know, that was kind of the idea. Honestly, my first choice for a name was Bastion, but Bastion's kind of a very widely used name already. There's already like a Michelin recognized restaurant called Bastion, so I had to pivot from that, but I wanted to keep the idea of Bastion, which was like a safe place, somewhere where everyone can fall back to and feel comfortable and feel happy.
So there's so much thought put in. I mean, clearly from the name to like the menu and the concept. I was asking you earlier, like, what would you describe this menu as? And you said Houston inspired. And I'm from Houston, like lifelong, and you've been here as well. Like people like us, we know, right, what that means, because there's just so much that makes up Houston, like this beautiful mix of cultures and food and people and all of that. When it goes into food, it's just like tastes that much better, right? But for people who don't know, I think that there's an importance to being able to define what your menu is and what the dishes are and what the cuisine is. So I feel like if I was not from Houston, or if someone wasn't from Houston, how would you explain your concept and your vision for this restaurant?
Well, I guess it has to start with like, what is Houston like as a culture, I suppose. And to me, Houston is like a patchwork, like a quilt of different cultures. Like sometimes they mesh a little bit, sometimes they keep their distance, but it's very individual pockets of culture that make up this big patchwork of Houston. So that's where I start from as far as what the cuisine here is. And what that really allows us to do is it really just makes it easy, because it's like a big palette of colors for a painter. And like, instead of just having 5 colors to paint with, we have like all the colors that you can think of like in the world. So that's how I think of it, is just we have all the colors to play with in Houston. So it's every dish is a separate homage either to one of those cultures or one of the establishments that have made Houston like what it is as far as
right. Because in Houston, it's not just like, okay, there's Vietnamese food, there's Thai food, Italian food. There's people like mixing all of those, right? And then you're drawing inspiration from that. So it's like really, if you think about it, a very detailed quilt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're drawing inspiration for so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I know sustainability is really important to you. And you kind of keep explaining sort of how you're implementing that in the restaurant as far as like using certain ingredients, like whether they're at the bar and then kind of reusing them in some way in the dishes.
So I guess for sustainability for me means what comes in the door, whether it's, broccoli or a carrot or a beef or whatever, making sure that whatever comes in the door doesn't go out the door in the trash, basically. So using everything, some people call it like, snout to tail or, whatever, leaf to roots or whatever it may be. But it's utilizing everything, because everything has a flavor. Everything has a use that you can put it to. So a big part of it is just not wasting the things that someone took their time and effort, maybe dedicated their life to growing or raising, making sure none of that goes to waste. So that's probably the biggest cornerstone for me, is that principle. But that ties into like, this is a business at the end of the day. Yeah. So, what the example I always give my employees is, if you buy carrots with the carrot tops on, the carrot tops cost the same amount per pound as the carrots at the bottom. So as a business, it just doesn't make sense to waste the rest of it. I think there was a period of time in restaurants where we got accustomed to it and people got accustomed to a certain percentage of waste in a restaurant. And I think I'm just kind of looking before that time when I think chefs had a realization that all these stuff has merit to it. The carrot tops, the broccoli stems, the broccoli florets, all of that has merit, and kind of digging into that as well, highlighting like the stems over broccoli as opposed to the florets, which everyone always does.
Right.
And then there's also like the ethical part of it. No, it keeps coming. Yeah.
It keeps on coming.
Oh, you tapped out.
What is this? Wow.
Those are strawberry and thyme semifreddo.
Okay, I'm actually glad you brought this out now, because it kind of leads me into my next question, which I have to ask. Do you have like a love affair with texture? I've never seen so much texture used in so many dishes, like in so many different ways, from the starter to the meats. I mean, the duck and date, just the name itself is so fun, and the texture of it, the stickiness of the sauce. And now here we are with this dessert, which it's just like, it's gorgeous, but then I can just tell spooning it into your mouth, you got like crunch and the softness and the sweetness and the sauce at the bottom.
Well, this is actually probably a better example of texture than you might know, because this is a great example because we have all the textures. Yes, crunch, the semi-Fredo is nice and fluffy, but like texture that no one ever thinks about is like a pop. And we actually put Pop Rocks in this.
Oh, Pop Rocks, that's always fun. Yeah, I see
So a
that.
nice little textural thing.
But
Generally speaking, like texture, it's not separate from flavor. It's actually like very important to flavor. Like if you infuse something like some kind of flavor into an oil which is thicker, you're gonna taste it differently than it's infused in water. Like water is gonna run through, you're gonna taste it real quick and then it's gonna be gone. But if you infuse that into an oil, it's gonna coat your palate a little bit more, and that flavor is gonna last, and that's gonna be the last thing you taste. Same thing on this one, like the dehydrated strawberries. Everything else, it's all strawberries and thyme. So you eat the semi-Fredo, you get the strawberries, and then it dissipates, and then you get the thyme on glaze, and then it dissipates, and then you're left with the chewy strawberry flavor because that's the last thing that you're chewing on. So the texture really does matter, like how you implement the flavor into the texture,
right?
Because that, what you taste first, what you taste last, all that's dependent on texture.
Should we? Yeah, I was gonna say, should we dig in? Okay, let's see. I want to get a little bit of everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's like oh my god. Okay, when I break into it, it's like bright pink in the middle.
Yeah.
What a little surprise. Okay.
So this isn't like a traditional technique on a semi-Fredo. Okay. Generally, you make like an ice cream base and then you freeze it, and that would be your semi-Fredo.
Okay.
For ours, I'm actually I'm taking a technique that we used to use a lot at Contra in New York, where we would do the same thing. We would make a flavored ice cream base, and instead of doing the regular semi-Fredo where you just freeze it straight up, we aerate it and then freeze it. So this brings a lot of memories to me because it reminds me of Contra in New York. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, the flavor combination I feel like it's not unique at all, but it's kind of novel. The thyme and strawberry put together. It's a good combination.
It's funny that you say that because it's like this nostalgic, really comforting flavor of that fruit, but with the Pop Rocks, it's really fun, and then it's really airy and light.
Yeah, exactly.
Really good. Okay, my mouth is popping. It's just popping. That's so funny. So I getting back to kind of like the textures and things. You are like a scientist. I mean, the way you talk about things and just kind of like the way that you choose to layer things, incorporate different flavors. So you have a background in this, yeah? Sort
of. I mean, I definitely did not graduate. I was about like 5 or 6 credit hours from graduating in biomedical science pre-vet, but for a long time, yeah, since I was like 8 years old, I wanted to be a veterinarian, and that was it. You couldn't tell me anything else about what I was going to be doing. So yeah, I dedicated to that for a long time.
And did you have a passion for food or for cooking at all?
Yes, but it didn't translate to like a career. Like I think at the time I didn't even know that was like a legitimate pathway that you could take. Like I just thought I love cooking. I started cooking at a young age, and I was always working in restaurants just like for work, to pay the bills. Yeah. But I just never put it together. Like I love food, like work with food. No, because I think I just always had like the blinders on, like, no, I'm going to be a veterinarian. All this other stuff was like outside noise. And then towards the end of college, when I was realizing I didn't want to be a veterinarian anymore, I started kind of letting in the noise a little bit more. And I was like, oh, I actually really love doing this. And this actually ties very cleanly to what I've been doing for the past however many years. So. And you've worked in some amazing restaurants in Houston and beyond. Sure. Yeah. What are some of the ones that stand out to you where you really feel like you learned a lot? I think the first one for me that really opened my eyes to like how deep you can get into it and just the layers there are in our industry was Oxheart. Mm-hmm. I came to Oxheart like probably 2 years after leaving college. And at that time, I was just, doing turn and burn stuff. I was working at Shade at the time in the Heights. It was a good spot. Oh my God, you are taking me back. It's a throwback. Everyone that recognizes that, they're, oh my God, Shade. But it was a good spot, but it was more, Shade was turn and burn, neighborhood spot. Yeah. It was fine. But walking into Oxheart, where everything was a lot more serious and there was a lot more, like there wasn't as much, chit chat on the line. There wasn't as much, lightheartedness in a way. And I think I took to that as well because I played sports all through, middle school, high school, college as well. So that intensity was another thing that pulled me into kitchens as well. Mm-hmm. So you go from one kitchen to a kitchen that's like 10 out of 10 intensity, that kind of, for me, maybe not for everyone, but for me, it kind of like awoke like something in me that was like, okay, shit, let's go. Like, this is what we're doing. And not only that, he was also delving into the more like scientific side, I guess, like preservation, different things that were popping up at that time. And he would do this thing where he would quiz us on the industry, like who won, Michelin like 2 years ago in this country or some shit like that.
Were you following any of like the whole food world is a whole other world, right? We have our celebrities of the food world. So were you following that? Like who was winning Michelin, James Beard, and like
at that
locally
time,
who was winning stuff?
Like vaguely. Yeah. Like I kind of had it on my radar, but I think I didn't even know how important it was back then. And that's something that Justin was very deep into, I think, from a young age. Like the chef here used to work here, we used to work here, and following that lineage. So he's the one that really sparked that interest in me. Is like the way I kind of tell it to my employees now is like, this is our sport. The same way if you're into soccer, like you keep up with what Messi's doing.
You know who the MVPs are. You know who's
playing this week.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who got traded? What's he working at now?
It's such a good analogy, exactly. But that's so true. Exactly. Yeah, like sports, it bores me to death, right? But the food world, I know everyone, right? Like I know all the players. It's just, it's fun for us.
Yeah. So that was a big thing. Is like looking at it like a sport, following that way. And then once I moved to New York, or just kind of the deeper you get into the industry in general, you start meeting some of these like chefs, athletes or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it kind of becomes even more real. Like, oh, this is a real person that I just met, and this is the best chef in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of sort of humanizes them, because there is a way, especially even more recently with shows like The Bear and all these food shows on Netflix and HBO and everything, they're like celebrities, right? But when you meet them and you're in the kitchen with them and you're cooking or you're teaching them something, they're teaching you something, it just humanizes them, and you realize that you guys are all doing the same thing, which is bringing people together over the table. And if you're able to like focus on sustainability and causes that mean something to you, I feel like even better. You're helping to change the world in a way.
Well, at least like you can change like your little pocket of the world.
Exactly.
And that's all you can do. And that's a big idea with this as well. Like, I want it to be a Houston-inspired restaurant that serves Houston, brings up the image of Houston, the reputation of Houston. But as far as like the kind of meeting your heroes sort of thing and like-minded individuals that you kind of looked up to, that was a big thing of Contra, where I worked in New York, which was probably the best restaurant in my opinion that I worked. That's something they would do all the time. Like at least every month there was a guest chef dinner with like, not just, one of their friends or something. It was like one of the best chefs in the world would come and cook with us for like a weekend. So I got to meet some of these heroes that I looked up to. And just like, you pick their brain, like exactly like a fanboy of an athlete. It's like, right. How'd you come up with this? How'd you do that? And then like, exactly like you said, like you realize they're just like me, but exactly. He's just over there.
Right.
Yeah. There was a chef we did a dinner with at Contra. His name's Matt Orlando. He's not a celebrity chef by any means, but in my opinion, he's like the best chef in the world. And we did a dinner with him, and I'm just super, like nervous. Like, I don't know what to do with this guy. Like, been looking up to him for however long. And then I see he has a tattoo on his arm, which is like this underground rap group from like the Northeast. And like, it was like the weirdest thing. I was like, what do you, this is like the best chef in the world to me. And he has like this random rap group that no one knows about except for like me and probably 10 other people. And that was like a big, like, it really, I don't know, gave me some optimism in the industry. Like, oh shit, he can do it, I can do it.
Right, for sure, yeah. And do you feel like somewhere along the way, because like being a chef and cooking in the kitchens, like with someone like Justin Yu, or with a big kind of group kitchen, like at some of these larger restaurants where there's so many line cooks and everything. When do you think it sort of changed from when you were one of a group to when you decided I can lead a group and I can sort of pass on some of these things that I've learned?
Yeah, I think that happened extremely reluctantly, because I think another draw going back into what got me back into the kitchens was that you didn't have to be the most personable person. I just had to be the best cook in his kitchen.
Right.
That's all I had to worry about for the longest time in the industry.
Yeah.
And then it got to a point where maybe I was just really good at what I was doing. So the chef would be like, hey, teach this person how to do it. I was like, okay, fine, whatever.
So all of a sudden you become a leader.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's incremental from there. He'd ask you to teach someone one thing, then you go to the next place, and now you're the guy that teaches all the sauces. And then it goes from that to now you're the guy that, some of my favorite jobs were I still didn't have to like talk too much. I just made all the dishes in the back. I did all the R&D, all the recipes, and then I had to teach all the staff, so then it just incrementally increased my need to like be a good communicator and a good leader and all that. And until we get to now, and now I have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some chefs that prefer to be out of the limelight, want to be in the kitchen, and that's kind of why they probably became a chef in the first place. But these days, like I said, it's so different, right? You have to be on social media.
Yeah.
Like, hey, chef, say something about today's special, and all of a sudden you're, in front of thousands of people.
Yeah.
But I do think you have a natural sort of persona that would appeal to like sort of, being in front of a larger kitchen and working. But yeah.
I think the reluctancy kind of leads to that, because like I'm not the first one to jump and speak usually, like when I'm not leading. So I'm thinking about how to address this person. Like two cooks, they're going to hear the same exact words completely different. So I take my time in approaching like leadership or mentoring someone and be like, well, how is this person going to hear it the best?
Right.
And go about it that way, as opposed to like, this is how I lead, meet me where I'm at. It's all about like meeting people where they're at.
Yeah, because everyone's different and you sort of have to know how to, navigate that.
And it's the hardest part, is like for me at least, and I think a lot of chefs feel the same, that it's one of the hardest parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as Barbacana, when you were sort of thinking, I want to create a concept in Houston, you knew you wanted it to be Houston inspired. Did you look around at the other restaurants? Obviously you're very versed in who's where, right? And everything. Did you say this is missing from Houston, or I want to create this and there's nothing else like it? Or was there sort of something like, yeah, Justin, you did this, or Aaron Blue Dorn does this, or, and I want to kind of draw from that. How was it? How was the concept sort of formed?
I think it was just more personal. Like if this is, thinking about opening a restaurant, this is going to be my baby. This is where I'm going to be all the time. I'm going to live and breathe this restaurant. It has to be something that I not only am passionate about, but I'm passionate about and will not lose interest or passion for.
Right.
So for me, I kind of have, I guess, like a small attention span. So I need, like we were talking about before, I need a big palette.
Okay.
If I don't have a big palette, I'm just going to use up all the colors, and then I'm going to get sick of it, and then I'm going to get bored. So for me, it was always about being able to use as much of the tools and as much of the skills and experience that I've accrued over the years in my restaurant. I don't know if I really related it too much to what everyone else was doing. Because, I mean, first off, restaurants open, every couple of days,
yeah.
And then they close every couple of days as well. So I wasn't so much comparing myself to anyone in town, but more what I was doing or what I was interested in. And I think just by chance or by circumstance, that is something that Houston needs. Something I was thinking about a lot when we were opening this is the original underbelly.
Uh-huh.
And that is like, I didn't think about it until like very recently, but like the original underbelly was doing something very similar to us, where they were paying homage to the real cultures that we have here.
Right.
I always think about the lamb and rice cakes dish that he had.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, where he was kind of throwing back to like the cultures that really built the city and that really, in my opinion, make it the best food city. It's not so much about the more high-end like restaurants that Houstonians think about when we think about Houston food. I don't know about you, but I think about, the little holes in the wall, like off of 59, the places off of Bel Air. I think of those places when I think of when someone asks like, what's the best food in Houston? That's where my mind goes.
Yeah.
So doing something that didn't include those kind of cuisines just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I feel like when I'm a lifelong Houstonian. I grew up going to Chinatown. My parents would take us there just because it was good, cheap food. It was close to home. Little India, obviously, we ate there all the time, and we still eat there. It's so good. Some of the best restaurants are out there. But now there's just even more to draw from, right? Like those are still there and they're still good. So the palette that you said that you're drawing from all these different colors, picking from all these different colors. The dishes are complex. I mean, I had the tasting menu tonight, and there's a lot of different ingredients. There's a lot of different flavors going on. Turnips in a Penang sauce. This is stuff you're not seeing all the time. Definitely. I eat out all the time and I don't see that yet. So you have incorporated an a la carte menu and a tasting menu. Is that tasting menu a way for you to sort of really be able to kind of like showcase the art and really draw like from all these different colors?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Is I wanted a location, a place, like a concept that could have everything. So like 90% of my experience is tasting menu, fine dining, very high end stuff, very high techniques. So I think it is a very like high expression of what we do when someone's able to do a tasting menu well. Of course, anyone could do a tasting menu, and tasting menu in and of itself doesn't really mean anything. But to be able to execute one that is like on a high level, I think that's a huge challenge, and I want to be able to like hit that challenge, because I guess I'm just competitive in that way. But at the same time, I wanted something that's different from the restaurants I've worked at, where most of my friends, family, whoever, couldn't go eat at those places,
right,
unless it was a birthday or anniversary or something.
Location,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I wanted the best of both worlds. I wanted to be able to express ourselves like in a more artistic way with this counter, with the tasting menu, but also to be able to like have a more grounded menu that any can come in.
And you're in downtown Houston, so you're going to get locals, you're going to the theater, you're going to get people going to sports events, the Astros right down the road.
Exactly.
And you're going to get, people who want that kind of elevated maybe experience. Like there's nothing like that really in downtown. There's no tasting menus, not really around here in this area. Yeah. Is there a reason you chose downtown versus like some of the other maybe trendier neighborhoods that they would like Montrose or the Heights?
More out of, Not specifically, no. Originally I wanted to open up on the East End because that's essentially where I grew up. I grew up, on the East End of Houston for the most part, and I wanted to kind of be part of the revitalization of that area, to be, part of the new businesses in that area. But it just wasn't a whole lot to choose from as far as locations. The only places where you could really find, it would have been like a whole revamp, like an old house that we would have to convert to a restaurant, which would have been just way over our budget.
Right.
So along the way, while we were looking for locations, we kind of stumbled upon this one. And I think
it's actually a really great location.
Exactly. So that's what it was. Like, I wanted to be over there in East End, but I walked into here, I was like, well, this is actually perfect. Like, this is bigger than I was expecting by a little bit, but like the 15-foot ceilings, the corner spot where you just walk out and it feels like you're in New York again.
It really does. This is a great, and I do think that you're giving way to more non-local visitors, which I think this menu sort of would appeal to like out of towners too, and it would give them a taste of Houston if they're not able to venture out.
Yeah, exactly. And that was another thing, is just the location, like you kind of pointed out, is really just perfect. Like we're right by the Post, 713 Music Hall,
right.
Like you said, Theater District, Minute Maid, Toyota. Like it's like on paper, it's a pretty amazing location. So,
and I think in a post-COVID era in Houston, at least, downtown needed that. East End is growing and that's great, but I think downtown also sort of needed a little bit of a resurgence.
Absolutely.
After COVID, and so I think this is a really great addition to the neighborhood.
Yeah, definitely. And everyone that we've met that either works downtown or like the other bars and restaurants around us, they've all been extremely supportive. They say the same thing, like, first off, downtown is like going through a resurgence right now, and that's kind of how downtown's always been. It goes down and then it goes up. COVID was a big low for downtown, and now the city, thankfully, is putting a lot of resources into revamping it.
Yeah.
But even just like the people that live above us in Bayou Lofts, they're so happy that there's something a little more refined, a little more upscale that they can turn to. Same thing with like the law firms and the courthouses. They're all just super happy. There's something a little different, and that's where we are. We're just different, and they're all happy that we're here.
I think it's an amazing story for you and for the city, for you to put something back into where you came from, and it's kind of like something by you for the people of Houston. I think it's incredible, and I wish you luck. I appreciate you sharing all of this with me.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming through.